It wasn't pretty, but as they say in the NFL, any road win is a good win. And the Jets are now 3-2 as the media begins to eat the type of crow they so often find themselves eating. And I'm not talking about the good kind. We'll break down the win, top performances, and much more as Jets Confidential Radio on the Prime Sports Radio Network starts now. All right, it's Monday, the 9th of October, 2017. I'm your host, Greg DePalma. As the New York Jets go to 3-2 following a 17-14 win over the Cleveland Browns. Before we get started, don't forget to order a subscription of Jets Confidential magazine. You can go online to jetsconfidential.com. Let's welcome in my co-host to the show, RotoWire.com sports writer Jan Levine. And so, Jan, again, in the preseason, we talked about the fact that all things, if you're looking at the best case scenario with this team, because of the schedule, that if everything went their way, this team would be 3-2. We knew the defense would have to be a big part of that, and then the running game. And to tell you the truth, it's really incredible. Because usually when we say stuff like that, it never really happens. We just say, okay, this is the best case scenario. But we never, with this team, we never think about that actually happening. But the best case scenario has happened. And you know what? Even if it's a long season in a few weeks, and it starts a long season, at least we got it this far. And at least we've got one really good game to look forward to.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, better to be lucky than good. And they clearly were lucky in several instances. A couple of key turnovers, key situations, a couple of nice drives, including obviously the big 97-yard drive for them to get what turned into a touchdown. But overall, they were okay yesterday. I don't think they were particularly good at times offensively. They weren't particularly good defensively. Special teams were okay, clearly headed by Catanzaro's 57-yarder to give them the lead at halftime. I don't know if I necessarily can blame the coaching staff for anything yesterday, but if they had played a really good team and not the Cleveland Browns, I think the end result would have been substantially different. Mm-hmm. But as they say, you got to play who's on your schedule and take the win whenever you can get a win. And yesterday was one of those games where you get out of Cleveland and say, thank you for letting us having faced the Browns, and thank you for letting us have a win, and look forward to facing New England this week.
Well, we also thought that there was a likelihood of this young team not being able to put it all together in a game that we most likely thought that they were going to be favored. As it turned out, it was really like a pick'em game. But a lot of people expected them to win based on how they had played coming in, based how the Browns had played. So I don't think it was so. So if they were playing a different team, maybe there's a different mindset. And every team in the NFL faces the situation where you just kind of look ahead to a different team, or you just don't think that this team is worthy for whatever reason, or you just have one of those bad weeks. And the Jets, that's why it was a good thing for the Jets, because they didn't play well, but they yet were. It wasn't like the game was handed to them, so they made plays both offensively and defensively, and they came away with an ugly win that every team in the NFL has at least once or twice during the season, and that's promising.
But as we said before,
I lost you. I'm losing you, Jan, on your reception.
You hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. I don't think you can look past any opponent. I mean, what we've seen so far this year, I mean, look at yesterday. I mean, Jacksonville blows out Baltimore a couple of weeks ago, loses the following week, come back, and they pick off Big Ben 5 times yesterday for 2 pick sixes, something that I don't think anyone would have expected going into the game yesterday, especially with Pittsburgh at home. So I don't think you can look past anybody on your schedule right now, mainly because of what we've seen this year. So while your mindsets may be different, to go in with it and looking past, quote unquote, Cleveland, especially given the difficulties where the Jets have had in the past in that stadium, despite winning, I think you needed to come into yesterday with a mindset of, I'm facing a top tier talent, even though you weren't, and then move on from there. And whether they're their game being slightly off because maybe they weren't up for the game. As we saw yesterday, if you're not up for a game, you very easily and quickly could get knocked back on your rear end. And look, they were fortunate to come out with a win yesterday, but as we both said, a win is a win is a win. Take it, move on. You have the win on the left side of your ledger, and that's all you care about when you play football games.
Offensively, it was pretty ugly, even though I must say, and I've talked about this on several shows this season, that Greg Williams, we even talked about it on this show, is that Greg Williams knows what he's doing on defense. And I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen this before. And I think that this is what you're going to see against the Jets. And I don't know why anybody wouldn't play the Jets this way. And they're going to stop. They're going to stuff the line of scrimmage. They're going to stop the running game, and they're also going to cut the receivers. And Josh McCown did not do a good job early in the game. The offense just did not do a good job early in the game adjusting. It took them a while. It took them a half to adjust to the fact that Cleveland was going to stop the running game, and they were going to cut off the short throws, and they were going to force the Jets to get a little bit creative, and they're going to have to give McCown some time to throw so receivers could get open. And I think that's what we saw in the critical drive of the game in the second half. After they stopped Cleveland, and they have the ball on that 4th and 2. They get the ball back. It's 10-7 at that point. Still, Cleveland has all the momentum because they had just scored a touchdown, and they were almost about to score a touchdown there. And if the Jets had punted at their own goal line, things just probably didn't look good right there for the Jets. But 3rd and 2, the reason Tomlinson was wide open is because the Jets gave McCown an opportunity to look up. There's Tomlinson. I'm going to hit him. He's wide open. Why would anybody cover Tomlinson anyway for 5 or 6 seconds? And that's what happens in those situations. And then on 3rd and 8 at the Cleveland 42 on the same drive, great protection. He's able to stand in the pocket for a long time. He finds Curley for 17. And then on the next play, right after that big 3rd and 8 conversion, was the very smart diagram play by Morton, where you fake it to Anderson, and Kearse gets behind the DBs for the wide open touchdown. Game over. And that's the kind of drive that they finally were able to put together, and that's what it takes. It takes some protection, and it takes some of the players to come up big, and that's what they did. The veteran players, the Curleys, the McCowns, and the Kearses. But again, props to the offensive line for at least coming through a few times and giving McCown an opportunity to throw the ball in a critical time, and the most probably critical drive of the game.
Absolutely. As you said, they did a good job of shutting down the running attack. And granted, the Jets weren't helped by the fact that Bilal Powell had a calf injury. So really, that only left Elijah McGuire, who struggled at times yesterday, though the offensive line didn't do a particularly good job of opening up any holes for him. And that's something we need to be concerned about for next week, mainly because with Matt Forte being questionable, with Powell probably being questionable as well, and to have to rely on McGuire and to be very one-dimensional against the offense is going to be against the New England defense is going to be very, very dangerous. But they finally started to find things that worked. Austin Seferian-Jenkins had a really strong game again yesterday. We saw in the fade pass for the touchdown. We saw in a lot of balls to be able to go up and get them. So that was huge for them. Kearse has come up big this year. Curley's been a nice addition since they've gotten him. So those three right there have really played major roles in terms of several of the wins this season. But this is where not having Powell hurts them as well, because Powell is one of those nice safety valves out of the backfield. So they're going to need to be able to mix in other guys, as you saw with the play with Tomlinson. Nice read by McCown. Good time in the pocket to be able to throw. I think he ran a kind of an in route. Very surprised that he was so wide open. Tomlinson and Bolus a little behind him, but was able to get 30 plus yards, which got them out of trouble. Was able to avoid them punting, and then they went down the field methodically for the touchdown. So really, really good drive there. The rest of the game very uneven in terms of the play from both the offense, especially defense. I don't think was particularly great at all times. They came up big with turnovers, but if the Browns had a decent field goal kicker, and if Kaiser had played better in the first half, the end result would have been a lot different.
Yeah, if you look at it, I think Demario Davis and Claiborne were the guys that came up with the biggest plays. It was definitely the worst game of the season so far for Adams. Njoku, another very talented rookie, ate him alive in the game. That's going to happen. He's a rookie. He's not going to have the greatest games. Not every player in the history of the NFL goes through their career without having bad games. And it was nice to see Marcus May, his fellow rookie, come up with the big interception at the goal line. And that was really nice to see. Darren Lee made a couple of plays, but he also got beat again for a couple of plays. He had that big pass interference on Duke Johnson, who, to tell you the truth, if he doesn't make the pass interference, it would have been a touchdown. So the pass interference helped the Jets because May was able to intercept Kaiser at the goal line on that drive. And then you kind of did feel that when the Browns missed several opportunities, matter of fact, in the first half, 4 of them, with the two turnovers and then the 2 field goals, that when the Jets were able to march down and get Catanzaro in field goal range when they only had like 35 seconds on the clock when they got the ball back, and he hits the 57-yarder, which is the longest ever for the Jets in the history of the team, that you had to feel, okay, maybe we're about to steal this one. And then I started to panic as soon as I saw Kevin Hogan take over for Kaiser. We talked a little about this last week. Kaiser was the guy that we wanted to see, and you can see why in the first half. But Hogan went in there, and now I don't see any reason that Hogan isn't going to continue to play now, at least for a while for the Browns. And then when he marches that team down the field to score, things didn't look good at that point. But the Jets were able to recover pretty quickly, and that's the most important thing. But yeah, the turnovers, a couple of guys making big plays on defense. Big 57-yard kick by Canizero, and also McCown making a couple of big plays on some key drives was really all they needed, considering they had 212 yards of total offense, was pretty pathetic. But in general, a win's a win. And now they take on the Patriots. And the Patriots, look, they got a win. It was a close win against Tampa Bay. Our boy Nick Folk had a bad game, so he did not help the Jets out. But the Patriots defense has been struggling a bit. They've lost some key guys from last year's team. They don't apply any pressure. So they're not going to be that's not a team to worry about that's going to pressure. But Belichick will look at that Cleveland film, and it's up to Morton now to make sure. And I think we saw that. I remember seeing it on 1 or 2 drives where he spread out the Browns and said, okay, we're just going to spread you out now, and we're going to try to throw the football a little bit, so maybe we can counter what you're doing as far as stopping the run game. I think they may have to do more of that in this Patriot game, especially if McGuire is the only guy in the backfield. They may have to do a lot more of that. If they're going to beat the Patriots, the coaching staff's going to have to get a little creative.
I'll tackle a couple of things. So first of all, the Patriots, I'm kind of expecting New England to have some kind of funky formation defense, forcing them to run the ball, maybe going like a 3-8, maybe going with some kind of other McGuire. And even though McGuire did have the big game, doesn't have the reputation, the rest of the team, you're facing a team that is coming off of several wins in a row, a lot of confidence. They're going to want to try to get an early jump on them to get the lead against New England. As somebody who's got Cook and Brady in my fantasy league, I haven't been happy with either one of them the last couple of games. So should be interesting to kind of see what they do, especially if Gronkowski plays, if he was out Thursday night. New England definitely got lucky, but you could argue the Jets did also. But Folk missing 3 field goals, that would have changed the whole tenor of that game and likely would have changed the outcome of the game as well. In terms of yesterday, the one thing I think that maybe got overlooked a little bit was on that drive where they got that 57-yard field goal by Catanzaro. You saw how far back Cleveland played on that drive. And I was listening to the game on radio, and the Jet broadcasters are remarking, going, how come they're playing so far back? Why are they giving them a cushion? They don't have any time left. Wouldn't you get up on the guys and then be able to try to force them to try to avoid a quick hitch? And sure enough, those last 2 games that the Jets did were kind of quick passes and getting out of bounds with a second to go, and ended up resulting in what proved to be, honestly, the game-winning field goal, especially with the Cleveland kicker missing 2 kicks, which also changed the game as well. So if you think about it, a lot of things went in the Jets' favor, but I'm a big believer in Branch Rickey's line of luck is the residue of design. You make your own breaks, and you make your own breaks, and you see what happens after you make those own breaks, and that's what happened there. And they took advantage sufficiently enough to get a win against a team that you should beat, against a quarterback that struggled tremendously, and Hogan diced them up in that second half. But they were able to get a couple of turnovers as well, at least one key turnover there. And then play calling by Hugh Jenkins was kind of odd. I mean, when they would have gone for the field goal, that would have obviously made that huge difference.
Yeah.
Not going for that field goal, it was really 4th and 2. It wasn't 4th and 1.
No.
It was really closer to 4th and 2. And that play call was a horrible play call. I mean, that got absolutely nowhere, maybe a half yard. And the Jets, again, they converted that third down play to Tomlinson, and then from there was off to the races. And granted, the tackling on that 50-yard screen pass for the touchdown was pretty horrific, but they fortunately were able to just get out of it and see what happens.
Yeah, as far as some of these players in the game, I never thought I would say that I miss Darryl Roberts, but I miss Darryl Roberts because remember we always talk about, well, all right, a guy that's on the bench, maybe he deserves to play, and we only say that because, and that includes quarterbacks, because we'd like to see if he would play better than the other guy. That's all it is. It's not, I know the guy in the bench is going to play better, so play him. It's that, well, let's just see. Well, we got an opportunity to see Marcus Williams play, and he was awful. So Marcus Williams, now we know why he's on the bench, and he shouldn't even be on this team. That's how bad he was. I was happy to see Freddie Bishop finally making a few plays. His containment was solid on the fumble. I'm going to give him some credit on that. Some linebackers will be faked out by that, and they'll either let the quarterback run or make it a little easier on the pitch. So not only does it make it difficult on Kaiser, maybe that helped with the fumble, and he recovered the fumble. So I thought Bishop played a pretty good game, and that's something that the Jets need. So those are a couple of players that I wanted to highlight there as far as the game is concerned. And also Edwards. I think in general, after 5 games, I think we now have to say that he's having a good season. He's been a little inconsistent. But he's also come up with some better kicks and worse kicks, and it was good to see that his leg was pretty powerful in the game, averaging 51.5 per punt. We've seen him do a really good job. He's one of the best in the NFL coming into this past week at inside the 20-yard line. And with Canazaro's kicks, these are the things the Jets need to win games. They're not talented enough to not be able to get support from their field goal kicker, from their punter, from their special teams. We're not seeing the opposition special teams gash us. Remember last year, it was getting gashed on special teams, and it was giving up big plays in the secondary. And as I said last week, and even though we see some plays here and there of 15, 20 yards, we're not seeing the 50-yarders all the time. It seems like every week. We're not even seeing any of them. And of course, we're also not seeing any big returns against us. So all that kind of stuff adds up. And it is also nice to, as you mentioned, as far as what it takes to win these types of games, I don't think there's any doubt that this is part of why I think this is the excitement and the optimism of the coaching staff, the new coaches that were brought here, getting rid of the baggage in the locker room. I don't think there's any question that has brought the team together. There are new voices. There's new players there. This is a new regime in a way. And I think all those little things are adding up for them to win these big games, at least these close games, because we know how tough it is in the NFL to win close games. So we see a lot of teams like the Chargers, Giants losing close games left and right. Jets were able to win them, and that's why they're 3-2.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. They did the little things that enabled them to win. The run stuff in play on the 4th and 1.5 and 2, the pick Claiborne's play, the pick by Marcus May. As you mentioned, Lachlan Edwards really punting, for about a 51.5 average on his kicks, getting them out of trouble when necessary. Cannizzaro was a big kick, and as I said, I was way wrong on right now, at least on saying they should keep Martin as opposed to him. Although, given the way Fulkus kicked, maybe Martin ends up in Tampa because they clearly need a new kicker, just as San Diego re-signed Nick Novak and got rid of their rookie kicker. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now that we're 0-4, let's bring in the veteran and get rid of the young kid. That's the Chargers for you.
Pretty much, yes. But Novak kicked well yesterday. But it's they take a step up in class, as you would think they take a step up in class this week when they go against New England. Now, granted, New England has had their own issues, and New England has had their own struggles this season. But you would still think that eventually they're going to figure it out. Though defensively, they've been straight. I mean, like I said,
I don't know.
Offensively,
yeah, but defensively, I
That's
don't
a
think they're
whole
going to
different
figure it out
ballgame.
defensively, though. They're not. You could just look at them on paper. They don't have the talent. They just don't. They are not going to figure it out. They have no pass rushers on that team. They have gotten rid of too many key guys, whether through retirement or trades or whatever. And again, may not say, oh, Jabal Sheard, Chris Long. Okay, yeah, but these guys played a lot of minutes, a lot of snaps for them. Ninkovich is retired. Rivers never made it to the field as a rookie. These are players that McClellan's out for the year. I'm sorry, but that team is not going to improve defensively. That doesn't mean the Patriots aren't going to win a lot of games this year. It just means that they're going to, in order for them to win this year in the playoffs, they're going to have to outscore opponents. And so I don't fear the Patriots defense this week. But whether or not we can stop Tom Brady is a different story.
And I don't feel their defense either. But all I said was you would expect, given their track record, they should improve somewhat. That may not be the case this year, and it may just be one of those years where the different moves they've made, the additions and deletions, but especially more so the deletions over the last couple of years, and subtracting certain guys out of that mix, has resulted in a defense that pretty much is a shell of its former self. And last year, if Atlanta had just run the ball the last quarter and a half, they likely win that game and end up being the Super Bowl champion. But they gave the game back to New England. You saw when they go against a good offense last year, and this year it's been no different for their defense because they've been unable to stop offenses when need be. They've been unable to get off the field on third down. They've been unable to sustain pressure. The key though this week is, do you have Forte back, and or does Bilal Powell play, so that way it takes the pressure off McCown and McGuire, with McGuire being the only back there, so they can mix it up a little bit. They can get guys out of the backfield. They can use these guys as pass-catching safety valves. In my opinion, the guy that's going to be the big key this week is the guy who was a key this week, is Austin Seferian-Jenkins, because if you don't have a run game, you're going to have to utilize a quick passing and a short passing attack to be that run game at times. And Jenkins is the kind of guy we've seen can go up the ladder and make the catches when need be and make the difficult catches, which is something you were hoping he was going to turn into. And maybe get Jordan Leggett back this week and you have a 2 tight end set or a 3 tight end set, including Tomlinson, that could be dangerous. You can mix and match them in the offense, even if you don't have Paolo Forte.
Yeah, look, we talked also about the reason why there was a possibility of them going 3-2, but then what would be the end result? And that would be the fact that Josh McCown continues to play. And the longer that, and if they do get off to this best case scenario 3-2, that's a worst case scenario for being able to see the young quarterbacks in a situation where they're getting some actual playing time. And so there's good and bad in it. Look, I think that some of these analysts, or a lot of them, writers and such, they don't really see and understand the big picture. Like, they're the type of people who would say, like, if a guy gets thrown out at first base, and then the next hitter hits a solo home run to tie it, that's the type of writer or analyst that would go, you see, if that guy didn't get picked off, they'd have the lead. Well, no, they wouldn't. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't, because you go from the stretch to the delivery. Your pitching situation changes. Everything changes. And that's what they don't get. And the same thing with McCown. We've talked about this before. We don't know how much better or worse the Jets offense would be if a younger quarterback like Petty played. And so for them to say that McCown is still far and away better, that's why he's starting, that's like giving up way too much credit to the coaching staff. Like, they know. Again, same thing with the running backs. They thought Forte was so much better, and obviously they were wrong with that decision. So they don't know. Nobody knows. And it's nice that McCown is making plays when he needs to make them. And I think it's great that he's on this team. He's a great leader. It's great for the young quarterbacks. It's great for the locker room. But we don't know if this offense would really take off, and would we scare the opposition so they don't jam the line of scrimmage, because Josh McCown then, who doesn't like to throw the ball deep, maybe Petty would, but in the same respect, maybe Petty would throw more interceptions. So these are things that we just don't know. So to lazily go out there and be like, oh, McCown is clearly a better option right now for the Jets, that's not the case. We don't know if that's the case, and that's the one thing that is just going to kind of bug me as long as this goes on about what's happening. I'm very happy they're 3-2. There's nothing I like more than sticking it to the media about how the Jets aren't as bad, and they're definitely not tanking, nor were they ever tanking. But that's the one thing that I just, in the back of my mind, I'm like, now that we're 3-2, I mean, I wonder how better this offense could be if we had a little bit more dynamic play at the quarterback position. So I think we don't really get into it too much because they're winning. But as soon as they start losing, if that does happen, I certainly hope it doesn't take long for Bowles to make the switch. But that's something we'll always just kind of put on the side during these shows for a couple of minutes, and I certainly hope it's nothing that we have to talk about 3 or 4 weeks later about, hello, why aren't you making a change? But right now everything's working out, and McCown's doing his job. But it is kind of, I don't know about you, but you watch this offense sometimes, and it's just, it's painful, especially yesterday, and it's painful to watch.
Can't argue with that. I mean, has been a nice placeholder, which is what we expected him to be. And to me, that's really the role that he is. He's a nice guy you can fit in your lineup, who's played better than expected. Probably he's not the kind of guy who's going to be your future number one, especially since he's 38, not 28. As you said, we don't necessarily know as to whether or not the other guys in that lineup would be any better. Although I don't necessarily know if Hackenberg or Petty would be better than him. The one thing it does do, unless they lose their next 11 in a row, kind of probably takes them out of the mix for a top candidate quarterback, like a Darnold or a Rosen or Allen. Ironically enough, I think if you would have asked anybody what's the odds on the Giants right now having a better shot at getting one of those guys in the Jets, you probably would have gotten about 1,000 to 1 odds. But this is what happens. Sometimes the NFL, things just don't work out the way you expected them to be. So the Jets are going to have to kind of see, in my opinion, what Petty and or Hackenberg can be down the road, just because you don't want to go into the off season next year without having a sense in terms of what those guys are really like. And right now, we know what McCown is. We personally think that he probably could be a good backup for the future, not a number one. But we'll have to see what those other two guys are made of, and if either one of them could be maybe a number two or even a number one quarterback next year.
Well, the good news is that 2 more quarterbacks, depending on how many of them come out, are going to make it. And I'll tell you right now, because I know this draft, been over this way too much. I can see if all 5 quarterbacks come out this year, we could see all 5 of them drafted like in the first 40. And that includes Mason Rudolph and Baker Mayfield. Matter of fact, Dan Shanka, who just put out his 2018 NFL Draft Preview Guide, his little booklet, his early analysis, has Baker Mayfield as his number 1 quarterback. So now, whether or not the underclassmen come out, we'll wait and see. But if they do, then that bodes well for the Jets, because at some point, even if they win 6 games or 7 games, and they do have enough ammunition to move up a few spots, especially the farther they go back down. If they only want to move from like 12 to 8, won't be a king's ransom, and they'll still be able to grab one of those guys. So, which is also why, as we said in the beginning of the season, don't worry about the tank nonsense. Because you just never know. And you never know about these quarterbacks, because Sam Darnold right now should not come out to the NFL. He's played pretty bad. If the season ended today, no way would Sam Darnold. I'd be shocked if Sam Darnold decided to come out. So for the Jets, I think there is hope, depending on who comes out. But yes, we would like to see at some point Petty get in there. And who knows? McCown has been durable so far. Whether or not he continues to be durable during the season, that's also something that can happen on any play. And then hopefully, if there is an injury situation with McCown, hopefully Petty, if he gets in there, can stay healthy, because I do think there is a big difference. I think you would agree with that. I think we know for sure. I think we know for sure that Hackenberg's not ready, but we don't know if Petty's ready or not. And I hope if he gets his chance, and I think he will get his chance at some point this year, that he doesn't get hurt again, nicked up, or anything like that, because he may not get another chance.
Agreed. And this is probably it for McCown and Hackenberg. If he gets caught, it'd be interesting to kind of see if he does land anywhere. I think Petty, just because of the arm and just because of as we talked about, the moxie he has at times, He's one of those guys that I think will end up landing there. But I just don't know as to whether or not Hackenberg would end up being the same. So in my opinion, it's really going to be very interesting to see when that decision is made in terms of making a change, and if that decision is made. And right now, I mean, all the talk that we had before the year, when we said, what's the shelf life of Todd Bowles? How long does Bowles last? Right now, you'd have to kind of think, unless something really untoward happens the rest of the way, you would have to think that Bowles has done enough clearly to kind of save his job.
Oh yeah, through the first 5 games, he's back, no question. Yeah, it would take a lot of losing and a lot of dissension, a lot of ugliness to turn. But look, the schedule does get tougher, so it's easy for these players to kind of come together and such early on. Couple of losses, we'll get over it. But if they go on a 4 or 5 game losing streak, injuries pile up. How does it work then? Because when you're a coach like Bowles, and we know that certain coaches can do certain things, and if you have the right talent, you can win games. But if you really want to get to that next level, the other coaches, the elite coaches, the guys that really know how to game management and all, we know that's where Todd Bowles is not right now. And I don't trust, nor do I think that that's going to happen overnight. So can he save his job for a couple more years and give himself time to get smarter with the position? Well, let's hope so. I mean, because that means that the team is doing well, not necessarily wins or losses, but playing hard. And look, inexperienced players can grow and get smarter, and so can head coaches. So that's the hope. Because this was one game that we did not look at the game, and even though it was sloppy and there were a lot of things going on that were wrong in the game, it was like the first game pretty much, I think maybe all year, where I have nothing negative to say about Bowles. And that's the funny thing, is that it was probably the ugliest game that they played. And yet I got nothing. There was nothing that he did where I go, oh my God, how can you do that? What kind of dumb thing was that? So that's a good step, I guess. But we'll see. Again, like I said in the beginning of the show, I'm just glad that at this point in time, the best case scenario has happened. They're 3-2. They're facing the Patriots at home. There's going to be a sellout, and this is going to be the biggest game of the year. And you know what? It quite possibly will end up the biggest game of the year if the team starts losing after this. But if they can actually somehow even stay competitive in the game, even if they lose, I think that's going to excite a lot of the fans. And that'll help them out moving forward, because the Dolphins look like crap right now. And so some of those games on the schedule that we might have put in as in a loss earlier this season, we're not going to necessarily be doing that right now. And I think that's what you do every year as far as the schedule is concerned. So we'll see. I'm going to enjoy the game, and I hope we enjoy the game. I hope it's at least a competitive game, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I mean, given what we kind of thought about before the season started when we saw this game, notwithstanding the fact that you would hope that a divisional game they get up for, we probably went into the game thinking, oh boy, this is likely going to be ugly. And what we've seen so far to both teams kind of makes you think, well, you know what? Maybe it's not going to be as bad as we kind of thought it was going to be.
Sure.
Maybe we have a shot here. And that's where I think we are right now. And look, I think we're all going to be fairly surprised if the Jets end up winning. They clearly will go in as, I wouldn't say will be a huge underdog. I'd say about a 7, probably 8-point underdog, given the nature of the two teams. But I thought they would be now compared to where they actually are. We're in a much better position. And I don't think if the Jets somehow came out with a win or took no wire, I don't think any of us would be tremendously shocked right now if that was the case.
Well, that's why I said, as long as it's competitive, doesn't get ugly, I think that the fans will be okay with that. And you know what? Bills at home, Dolphins on the road, as bad as the Dolphins are playing with all the issues that they're dealing with right now, I don't think it's really far-fetched to believe that if this team just keeps improving, which they hopefully will, as a young team, they just keep growing, that they can be 2-2 in the next 4. And if they can be 2-2 in the next 4, that's 5-4. And all of a sudden we can actually start thinking, hey, okay, this is interesting. So I think they can go 2-2 in the next 4. I think that's a very distinct possibility.
Well, I guess the key thing for me is, which is the wisest course of action for him to go with. It's good that the young kids are getting the exposure to winning. It's good that the young kids are getting the exposure to be able to play at a higher level and have games that mean something to them and be competitive. But I'm also very cognizant that this offense does need an uplift. This offense does need more talent. The whole team as a whole needs more talent. And would they be better served to getting that talent higher up in the draft, despite the fact that we know that the NFL draft is somewhat of a crapshoot? And this is kind of one of those things that you have to keep in the back of your mind as you go through these things, as to what's better for the short term, but also keeping an eye on really what's better for the long term. And to me, that's kind of the offset between the two of, yes, it's wonderful to win, and yes, it's wonderful that they're playing better, but is this in the best prudent course of action for the organization as a whole moving forward, knowing where we are as a team right now?
Well, you know why I think it is that if they play like this, it is. If they win games, well, let's say the Cleveland game, let's say they win 3 more games like that this season, then it's no, because that means they're playing ugly. It's just ugly ball. That means that the other team is just worse, and I don't think it accomplishes anything. We just lose spots with the draft order. But if we can play like in a whole, like we have the first 5 weeks, 3-2, there's been more better than not. It's better than anybody thought. The young players are improving because there is a good core, as we talked about in the beginning of the season. The core is there, and you just have to see it. And I think we're starting to see it. Now it's just a matter of go out, get your quarterback. You got the cap space, you got the draft picks. It won't be that long after that, and I think the winning culture does help. So as long as it's in a good way, then I think I'd rather have that than to have ugly losses against bad teams in situations of games, especially at the end of the season, that mean nothing, and we're playing McCown or something. And it's just one of those things where we're like, you kidding me? I mean, this is just ridiculous that we're 7-9 when we would all rather be 5-11. But I right now I think it's for the better. But I could change my mind, depending on how the season goes. And I also said this in the beginning of the year, and I'm going to keep saying it. I mean, I don't have faith in Todd Bowles benching Josh McCown. I just don't, especially as long as they keep winning. He's not going to do what the Giants did with Eli. He's just not. That's the way he is. And that's something we'll need to keep an eye on as the season progresses, because that, to me, is more important than the draft status and all that. I'm more concerned with going a whole season and not being able to see Petty or Hackenberg at all because they go 8-8.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think you almost wonder is if the organization is going to have to take that decision away from him. And I don't know if they're going to go that route because, as we said, to me, Corley needs to find out what you have for the future beyond knowing what you have for now. And that's kind of, I think, to me, where they really are. You have a sense as to what you are right now or what McCown might be in the future, knowing what we've seen from him in the past. To me, what I want to see is what you get out of the wide receivers. To see where, if any of those guys can be components of the future.
Yeah, they got to play more. They have to play more.
At
no
a minimum,
question.
They should be 2, 3, or 3, 4. Seeing what you get out of Leggett, but really more importantly, seeing if Safarian Jenkins can continue the rebound he's shown to date. So to me, that's a huge component to also see moving forward, because if he can be that tight end and I wouldn't say dominant, but an upper tier tight end, a top 10 to 12 tight end, that helps the rest of your lineup in terms of filtering in beyond that what you need to fill in to be able to become that really strong offense in the future.
Yeah, no doubt that even though that Stewart and Hansen are active every week and make the field for a couple of plays, they have to figure out a way at some point in time, real soon, of getting them more reps. They have to. I mean, look, Curley has been very good. Kurtz has been very good. We know what Anderson can do, and that's nice. But you have to figure out a way to do it. You have to say, you know what, for this series, it's going to be Hansen for Anderson. It's going to be Stewart for Kurtz or Curley. You got to do it. I mean, you got to start playing these kids. And again, I think we're confident enough in what we've seen from both of them that they would hold their own, give them a shot. I mean, it's not like just, okay, let's just play the kids to play the kids. It's that they've shown potential. So let's get them in and start. Nobody's saying to let them play half the game. But, the whole thing about getting 12 snaps and 4 snaps and 2 snaps, I mean, come on. I mean, you can do better than that. And that's what they need to start doing more of. But the one main weakness, though, on the offense right now, of course, we know the quarterback is definitely the offensive line. That's something that next year, for sure, through free agency or the draft, they definitely. Now, I haven't been a proponent of getting any help on the offensive line for years now, but now I finally am. This is a spot that, after everything else they've done, and I think McCagnon's done a good job so far, that is one position now that they do have to take advantage of next year with the draft status and also the salary cap. They have to get a little bit better there. They have a couple of guys there, but they got to get a little bit better there. And then of course finding somebody like a pass rusher on defense would help. By the way, Coney Ely not playing last week, so hopefully from what we hear, he'll play this week. Maybe that was also something where we could play him, but we'd rather save him for New England as opposed to especially considering what happened with him in New England. You got to believe that he's going to be fired up, because he was fired up last week because of his personal issues, and now he's going to be fired up to face Belichick. So having Coney Ely ready to go against the Patriots will be big.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ely's going to come out fired up this week. You would expect him to. You took the words out of my mouth. I think, you always want to respond to the team that didn't think you were worthy of being with them by sticking it in their nose and rubbing it in their faces. And Ely gets that opportunity this week facing a New England team that let him go just before the season started.
All right, Jan. So thanks as always for joining us AirJan23. That's your Twitter handle. We'll talk to you again next Monday. Let's just win or lose. Let's hope there's more positive things to talk about than negative. So, but hey, who would have thought 3-2, right? Well, we suggested the possibility at least, and so it's good. It's nice to see. So hey, it's good to come on these shows every week and actually be pretty pepped up about them.
Absolutely. I mean, who would have thought division-leading New York Jets right now?
And hey, if they can win next week, really division-leading New York Jets. All right, Jan.
Yeah, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
All right. Enjoy the game. We'll talk to you next Monday.
Sounds good.
All right, that's Jan Levine, rotowire.com, AirJan23. A couple more things. By the way, 6 o'clock, Our Lads Football Network. We'll go around the NFL, college football, and also fantasy football. So that's coming up at 6 o'clock on the Our Lads Football Network. One quick thing, Michael David Smith from ProFootballTalk.com had this today on their website. Heading into the season, everyone knew the Jets were tanking, trying to lose, hoping to be the worst team in the NFL this year so they could get the first pick in the draft next year, purposely throwing their season in the toilet. Everyone, Michael. Okay, obviously, you don't listen to this show, nor do I expect you to listen to this show. And considering that everybody out there listening knows that we don't homer this thing, and you know that, all you had to do was listen to the show 2 years ago when the Jets were marching to the playoffs, and we were being, well, you know what we were being, pretty critical about why they were doing what they were doing. And now you see why we were critical, because it's put them in this position. And that's kind of also why I'm a little bit worried about what's going on with McCown, because they did it already with Fitzpatrick. And all those veterans that they cut loose the next offseason. So you see exactly why we were being critical. It wasn't to be critical. It was because we could see it was the wrong decision. So we're not going to be biased on this show, pro-bias or negative bias. Okay, so yeah, we did not, and we said it a few months ago, believe that they were tanking. So yeah, mostly everybody did believe they were tanking. We did not. That's why you listen to this show. Anybody listening right now, hearing from what I say, knows that's why you listen to this show. All right, because most of the people out there that are talking this BS about tanking, it's nonsense. We said it before. We don't really have to say it anymore, but I'd like to go ahead and prove these people wrong. The Jets are in a three-way tie for first place in the AFC East with the Patriots and Bills. The Jets are most certainly not tanking. Well, welcome to the club, Michael David Smith. It's about time. You're a few months late. The truth is, none of their personnel moves that were decried as tanking have really turned out to look so bad, says Michael David Smith. Oh, really? Something we also stated on countless times on this show about that being the reason that they were tanking. What did we say? No, it's not. They had to remember, oh, Woody Johnson's cheap. How could they do this to David Harris? They're definitely tanking. Look at all the talent they're giving away. What did we say? No. Okay. Why did we give the reason for David Harris to go? They didn't know that they were going to be able to get the Mario Davis. How's the Mario Davis playing right now? A lot better than David Harris is in New England, because David Harris doesn't even play in New England. And then what about the other players? Hey, like he says in this article, what does he go? He even says it right here. Look at this. Veterans have been nothing special on their new teams. Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker aren't exactly making a lot of big plays. Linebacker David Harris has barely played. Nick Mangold, cornerback Darrelle Revis haven't played at all or found a new NFL team. Maybe the Jets got rid of all these guys, not because the Jets wanted to lose, but because the Jets wanted to win. And they knew all those old veterans weren't going to help them win anymore. Welcome to the club, Michael David Smith. A few months late, but welcome. That's what we like doing here. We like being smarter than you guys. And in fact, it takes you usually months, sometimes a year or two to kind of catch up. But that's why the listeners who listen to this show like it. All right, because they like getting the information months and sometimes a year or two earlier than everybody else. And if the Jets actually wanted to lose, they wouldn't have Josh McCown as the starting quarterback. And this goes to show you once again that why a Michael David Smith is a Michael David Smith. Because he goes with Josh McCown as a starting quarterback ahead of much younger Bryce Petty, Christian Hackenberg. 38-year-old McCown has no role in the Jets' long-term future, but he's a better player today than Petty or Hackenberg. And he gives him the best chance to win. See? Because, once again, a Michael David Smith doesn't have any foreshadowing. He's got no pulse on talent. Doesn't get the fact that there is an opportunity and there is a chance, and it's not small, there's a chance that if Bryce Petty played, the Jets' offense would be better. And we see this he probably would have said the same thing about Matt Forte. Matter of fact, he did. He said the same thing about some of these guys that were gone. That's what they all said, that all these guys that were leaving the team were better than the ones the Jets have now. Has that been the case? No. So all of a sudden, why can't that be the case with the quarterback situation? Don't stop there. Don't start with those veterans. Again, I don't want anybody to think that I'm trying to say that I believe Petty is going to be some great quarterback. He can play a half, a game, look like, 2 interceptions, Jets lose, look awful, and he can even do it for a game or two. All right, I saw it, don't like it, at least I gave him a chance. That's all I've ever asked for. But that's not going to happen anytime soon, and we're going to deal with it. Maybe a month down the road, because at 3-2, as we said in the beginning of the season, that's going to extend it. And McCown has basically bought himself half a season now. And that's it. That's the way it's going to be. But the 3-2, they're making it fun for us. Not McCown, but the team. Everybody is a joint effort. And that's fun. And I just love the fact that they're winning and screwing the writers, screwing the analysts. So writers like this will have to eat his own words, I'm sure, because I'm reading them right here from what he's saying. Because this is exactly what him and every other broadcaster basically felt about the Jets, that they're all tanking and that these decisions were wrong. Well, if you don't believe me right now from what I'm saying, we got the on-demand shows. Listen to them yourself. We've got a whole library of on-demand shows from our preseason shows about everything we said. Let's just hope this continues. That's what I'm looking forward to more than anything. Is look, win, lose. Let's hopefully enjoy this, because there ain't no tank for Sam anymore. And it's not because the Jets are winning. It's because Sam Darnold stinks right now. Something else that we talked about, by the way, several times a few months ago. But, at least you listen. All right. Enough of that. We'll see you next Monday. We'll recap the Jets' big game up against the Patriots. And as I mentioned, you can listen to all our on-demand shows on our YouTube or iTunes pages on the Prime Sports Network. You can also read our daily content at ourlets.com. That's where you can check out the best NFL and college football depth charts in the business. If you have any questions or comments, if you'd like to participate on the show, you can send your messages and also follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. Thanks again for tuning in to this PSN production. For Jan Levine, I'm Greg DePalma, and we are the home of the JETS Jets. We will never see the truth around. Another promise, another scene, another package like to keep.